My name is Joseph Stinchcomb. I go by Joe. I was born in Germany, and we moved to the States when I was about 5. And I've been in Oxford, Mississippi since 2008.
Nice. Okay. So how are you in Germany, or how did you end up here from Germany?
My dad was in the Air Force,
Okay.
and he was stationed there.
Cool.
We moved to London, then from London back to America.
So how did you become a model in this series?
Robert reached out to a friend of mine, Adrian, and asked if she knew anyone who wanted to be a model or wanted to pose. She didn't want to do it. She's like, I have one friend who would definitely do it. And so she texted me, was like, hey, this guy from Arizona is looking for models, nude modeling, would you do it? And I text her, fuck yeah, I'll do it. And that's how I became a model. I think as you get older, you get more and more self-conscious. And I think doing this gets you out of your comfort zone, right? Because clothes are definitely like a shield, right? They feel like a barrier. And for me, like, to be able to be completely naked is the most honest I can be to anyone, right? There's no more hiding anything. There's nothing like to tuck anything in to make me look tall or whatever it is. That's just who I am. And I think if you can't be honest with yourself, how can you be honest with someone else? So that's one reason why I decided to pose.
So do you think you would have felt differently about this if he asked you, say, like 5 or 10 years ago?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think as you get older, you get more comfortable and you just stop, I don't say not caring, but you just kind of lose some of those barriers that you feel in terms of like self-defense and showing off and things like that. Yeah, if I were 24, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Well, I think the follow-up question is, would you do it 20 years from now? Like, if you were able to imagine where your head will be in, or when you were 70 or something.
I would like to think I would.
Yeah.
If I were 54 or 74, I think I still would want to pose. Because I like to see like the progression of life, right? Like, this is what I look like in my 30s. This is what I look like in my 50s. So I look like in my 70s. It kind of like all is me, right? And this is just how honest I am and how the truth has changed over time, right?
When you first came to the house for the modeling session, I remember you were talking about how nudity almost like equalizes everybody, because without the clothes, nobody knows who anybody is. I think you've already touched on that a little bit, but is there any other, that and the fact that you were talking about Tark as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vulnerability.
Yeah, I told him, because he asked me, he's like, Joe, why are you doing this? And I was like, man, it'll be great to feel vulnerable again. And he was like, vulnerable? And I was like, yeah, man, like, when's the last time you were exposed like that, right? And he was just like, man, you're right. Like, I too need to take a chance and like change and, like get outside my comfort zone. And that's like, I talked Tarkin to do it. He was like, man, you said it. And I was like, yeah, vulnerable. That's a really good way of putting it. Like, you're exposed, right? You're outside naked, like posing, right? Like, that's just, sounds like a worst nightmare, right? Like, hey, let's get outside naked and pose, right? So I think that's also part of like why I want to do it, because it's things that I wouldn't necessarily do in my day-to-day life. And it also just challenges my idea of nudity, right? And like, not even the sexualization of things, but we all are naked at some point, right? And at some point, it's just a body. Like, it's just someone there posing for art. It's not that there's no sexual connotation. It's just a person there posing for art.
What do you think having your portrait will have an impact as far as like commentary on the period and the community, the Oxford community, well beyond any of this documentation?
Doing art like this keeps Oxford weird in a good way, right? As we see more and more people moving to Oxford, it changes to be more pristine and clean. You see people being priced out, and like minorities, people of color, anyone who was counter-culture, what goes on today, right? We want things to be like crisp, clean, nice, neat, white. And doing art like this with a black subject and a white painter in the South doesn't necessarily happen, right? It's either some kind of weird slave motif or something like that, or some kind of like, we shall overcome type of thing, right? But just to portray me as just a person means more than just like, especially in the South where it's like, oh, he painted just a guy. Like, I'm black, but I'm also just a man, right? And I think it stands to reason, like, why is that the case in Oxford? Why is it like risque that Robert painted a black person naked? It's like, oh my gosh. And, I think that's part of it that I hope changes, and what lasts is like, it's okay. I'm just a person like anyone else.